So welcome, and thank you so much for being here. My name is Christy Mahan. I own Dream Vacations Escape Artist Holidays, which you can always find me there. Tonight, as part of our ongoing web series, hashtag We Will Travel Again events. Tonight we are visiting the Caribbean and all its wonderful destinations, and I am very pleased to be joined by Marissa Crescenzi of Royal Caribbean. Nobody does the Caribbean like Royal Caribbean.
Absolutely.
So tonight we're going to cover a lot of ground. We're not going to talk about a particular itinerary because it's not just about one thing. It's about the whole area. There's so much to see, so much to do. It's not just beautiful beaches, turquoise water, and palm trees, although that is the part that gets me very relaxed very quickly. There's lots of ground to cover, and Marissa's going to go over lots of stuff tonight. But I do want to remind you guys, you can always see what are our upcoming events or link to past recordings if you go to that URL there in the middle of your screen. And one other thing I want to highlight is next month, I'll be doing a special presentation where we will be, I'll be hosting a roundtable of 3 industry experts, and they're going to be talking about what's currently happening right now, where resorts are open in the Caribbean, where 2 cruise lines are currently already up and running again in the Mediterranean. And we're going to be talking about tour companies that are currently up and running. So that's going to be coming up in a few weeks. So I hope you'll consider joining me for the roundtable, because that will give you a snapshot of what the future of travel will look like in the present. So that's interesting. So I hope you'll get a chance to join us in a few weeks for that. But what I'd like to do is hand tonight's presentation over to Marissa from Royal Caribbean. Like I said, she's got a great deal of ground to cover tonight. So she can start sharing her screen while I just give you guys a little preview of what she'll be talking about. So as many of you know, Royal Caribbean is #1 in the Caribbean for a good reason. It's not just the name. There's much to see and do. So if you've already cruised with Royal Caribbean, you'll know what to expect from them. We're not going to get too much involved in what the cruising experience itself is tonight, just because we could really go down that rabbit hole and be there for hours. Suffice it to say, Royal is my #1 cruise line for families. I always recommend it for families or multi-generational trips where it's, grandparents, parents, grandkids all going together. There's literally something for everyone to enjoy or relax or experience on the ships themselves. There's lots of different kinds of ships, and we're going to cover a little bit of that tonight. And because the Caribbean is such a diverse area, even though it kind of, at first blush, you may think, oh, all the islands are the same. They're not. And you can have so many different kinds of experiences in the Caribbean, whether you're doing a Western Caribbean itinerary, an Eastern Caribbean itinerary, or a Southern itinerary. There's lots of different islands and, their own cultures kind of overlay everything you'd experience on that island. So it's not just about going to the beach. But anyway, I'm going to let Marissa take the wheel and take us on a great little trip tonight. Thanks, Marissa. I appreciate you being here.
Well, thanks for having me tonight, and thank you everyone for joining us this evening to escape the dreary pandemic that we're in right now and pretend that we are relaxing somewhere in the Caribbean. Joe, we're going to escape in our minds a little bit and maybe enjoy a cocktail if that's what you guys are doing. Cheers. So let's keep going. So we started in 1969. Last year was our 50th anniversary. We have 17 years consecutively in a row awarded Best Cruise Line in the Caribbean. Royal Caribbean actually has 2 private destinations in the Caribbean, which I will feature later on in the presentation. And for any of you who either really know Royal Caribbean we also have 37 Caribbean ports of call. I'll probably feature maybe like 30 of them in the presentation tonight, but don't worry, the presentation will be succinct. We won't keep you for 37 hours, but we totally could talk to you about it for that long because there really is so much to offer at each destination. In the Caribbean, we actually have 10 ports, so that's pretty awesome, and I'll show you that as well. And we have 20 ships in the Caribbean. There are some cruise lines that don't even have 20 ships in their fleet, but we really truly specialize in the Caribbean, and I'll show you later on what kinds of ships are in the Caribbean. And it's everything from more of like an intimate feel ship to our largest ships in the Caribbean. So let me see here. And Christy, you can see my screen and hear me okay, right? I got like a low quality message or something.
Yeah, your little voice was in and out a little bit, but you seem to be okay now.
Okay, great. So as I mentioned, 50 years in the Caribbean, no one does it better than Royal Caribbean. Our ships are very innovative. We have year-round presence in the Caribbean. Lots of different shore excursions. We have the private destinations that I spoke about. And just like Christy was saying, we seriously have something for everyone. So whether you're 2 years old or you're 92 years old, you can definitely find something to do that piques your interest on Royal Caribbean. Whether it is more relaxing on the beach or it's, you know, riding an ATV, we have it all. So when I talked about the Caribbean ports that we travel to, there was, I believe, 37 that was mentioned there. And like Christy said, we sort of lumped them together by itinerary. So we have the Bahamas and Bermuda, and you'll be able to go there from the Northeast in our backyard of Cape Liberty, Bayonne, New Jersey. If you want to go a little bit further south, we recommend that you probably fly down to maybe Galveston, Texas, or one of our ports in Florida, and then you can get to the eastern, the southern, or the western itineraries. And as you can see, some of that kind of overlaps. So you have lots of different options depending on how long you'd like your cruise to be. So we'll start first with the Western Caribbean, and here are the ports of calls that I will talk about in just a moment. So Belize is awesome. Belize City, you can find some really cool ruins. I believe this particular one is 135 feet up that you can climb and have an excursion there. I'm just going to highlight like one or two things from each destination. Costa Maya, Mexico, gosh, those caverns are so magical, and the vibrant waters that you can go swimming in, they're just so refreshing and unique. Again, more ruins to explore. And then you can do something even a little bit more spiritual and go into kind of a healing ritual as one of our featured, what am I thinking of? Featured, not destinations, excursions, excuse me, excursions, aside from the beautiful beaches. Now in Cozumel, there's a little bit more adventure to be had here, lots of shopping as well, but ATVs are really cool for those who have a little adrenaline junkie in you. The snorkeling, gosh, everywhere in the Caribbean, you really want to snorkel. And you might say, like Christy had mentioned, you know, aren't they all the same? No, not at all. The different coral reef in different areas, different animal life and sea life that you'll see differs between each destination. And then if you want to take it up a notch, just like when you go to Hawaii, you feel like you have to embrace the luau, you really should embrace a Mayan experience when you're down there. So Jamaica is a really cool destination. I was thinking about this yesterday. Christy and I talked a couple days ago about what we were going to present on. Got me thinking about some of my experiences. And I loved Jamaica. We actually did a lot when I was there, and I was thinking about it, doing the math, and I was like, that's 15 years ago, but it honestly seems like last year that I went. It was so memorable. So there's beach parties, embracing the culture as far as food is concerned, family passes to different kinds of adventure falls. And when I went there personally, I was, I think, a young adult, maybe still in college. I went with my family, and another family. It was like a big group of us, and it was multi-generational. So me and my brother were considered the kids, but we were older kids. There was my parents and grandparents, and same for my girlfriend Brooke and her family. It was the same kind of three generations. And we went to the falls and we climbed the falls. We went to a plantation and got a tour of that. And then we also got to see how rum was made. And then they freshly wrapped cigars right there for my dad and my grandfather, which to them was the coolest thing. I really could not, care less there. But it made me think about it, right? Like a little excursion that you might think is like, it's cool to do, but I'm still talking about it 15 years later. And I called my mom about it. And she's like, this is why we do it, to create family memories.
Make memories. That's what this
Yes.
stuff is all about, man. I agree. I mean, and like you're saying, there's so many things to do in each of these places. I mean, even if it's more of a conventional thing you want to do, like if you are interested in golfing for the day, you can do that too, or sitting at the beach. I mean, there's plenty of choice in so many of these ports. It really does give you a full like smorgasbord to choose from. So if you're on a
Yes.
7-night cruise and you're making 4 or 5 different ports, you can really mix it up every day, do something really different.
Absolutely. So, Georgetown, you should go snorkeling with the stingrays. Now, while you may think like, Marissa, you're crazy. I'm not snorkeling with stingrays. They really are harmless. I wouldn't touch their tails because then they get a little snippy. But you can, I mean, even if you go to a local aquarium, you can feed
Yep.
the stingrays. They really are pretty calm. So that's a really fun experience. And we recommend you do that in Georgetown. Honduras. I mean, how exotic, even just the name Honduras sounds fun. And it doesn't, like Christy said, it doesn't have to be this big thing. You could just really want to enjoy the beautiful waters and sit on the beach. There's Roatan Marine Park, which is a fun state, I guess you can call it almost like a state park if we were talking about the United States. So whatever is your interest, or maybe you want some history, and you'd go to this Discovery. I think it's more ruins inside there. I haven't been there myself. Lots of different options. And then the last destination I'm going to talk about, this little cluster of the Western Caribbean, is Labadee, Haiti, which was actually Royal Caribbean's private destination. And here is a map of the, I guess you can call it a peninsula. And just like if any of you are familiar with any of our Oasis class ships, how we have 7 different neighborhoods, there's also 7 different neighborhoods on this peninsula, and something for everyone. So if you want to go to Adrenaline Beach and go on the roller coaster or the zip line, you're welcome to do so. Or maybe you just want to relax, or maybe you just want to, have some good food and drink, you're welcome to do so. So lots to do. And this, I believe, is also in ports of call, whether you do the Western Caribbean. I think it overlaps as well with the Eastern Caribbean. So you have a couple different options at this wonderful destination. So now we'll talk about Eastern Caribbean, which maybe some of you are a little bit more familiar with because it is pretty popular. And one of the home ports is in San Juan, Puerto Rico. So you can fly down there and then do some of these itineraries. So St. Kitts, gosh, I mean, look at that view from up on that mountain. You can go for a hike, and when you're done getting your exercise for the morning, have a cocktail on the beach. But beautiful mountains and sea colliding together for some picturesque memories. St. Thomas, you could do different kinds of tours. You can have some family time snorkeling and underwater adventures, and then just, hang out on the beach. And the beaches, like, well, I don't know. I'm assuming a lot of you are in New Jersey, and, Jersey has the Jersey Shore. As you know, these beaches are nothing like the Jersey Shore. they're clean. The sand is soft. The water is much calmer and cleaner and
Yes.
clear.
Yes. Much calmer. I mean, you could just bob along all day long, buy a bucket of beers and just enjoy that beach all day long.
With some sunscreen.
Yeah, of course. Be safe. Actually, what is
Phillipsburg,
it?
St. Martin. So
What are the, is it Megan's Bay is often one of the top 5 beaches in the world whenever they do surveys of top 5 beaches, and that is in St. Thomas. And it is a stunner. It really is.
oh, I didn't know that. Thank
Yes,
you.
Megan's Bay is always on that top 5 list.
Good to know. So a really cool excursion you can do in Phillipsburg, St. Martin, is the sailing regatta. So you can actually do an excursion where you have I don't know how long it is, let's just say a short instruction, and then you yourself can race a sailboat in the beautiful waters down there. So yeah, right? Like how unique is that? Otherwise, I guess we would go to Maryland to race a sailboat, but we would probably be dominated by all the professionals.
Yeah.
As I mentioned, San Juan, Puerto Rico, very popular destination because it is one of the home ports. Cute shops and shopping and restaurants. The Bacardi distillery is really popular there, so I would, if you're into that, I would definitely recommend it. And then look how cool that man is, just kind of using a waterfall as a slide. So definitely something that you wouldn't really experience up here in the Northeast.
No, definitely not. And there's so much history in a lot of these islands too. There's the colonial era, right? Stuff, some of it pleasant, some of it not so pleasant. And also the influence of the native population that has been there for centuries and how they have kind of resurfaced and blended together. There's a lot of things that even just a stroll through the port will be gratifying, you know? I mean, like I particularly like strolling around San Juan for that. You know, there's so much history there. And it's a beautiful place. So you don't even have to, you know, do anything extravagant to enjoy a beautiful day in port.
Absolutely. But if you want, in St. Croix, you can even just go on a tour bus or rent a car or bikes and just do a quick drive or a bike ride and explore the island for what it is. You know, like Christy was saying, I'd say, you know, you can kind of do your own thing because of the pandemic and this CDC. I'm not sure if that will really be a thing anymore. Hopefully it will. But there are a lot of things to explore, and Christy and I will talk about, you know, maybe some of the new ways of excursioning. I don't even know how to make that word a verb, but you know what I'm saying. But there will definitely be opportunities to explore the islands for what it is and just sit back and enjoy the sights for sure. So now we're going to head down to the Southern Caribbean, and there are a lot of islands. So you'll see a lot of itineraries on what, at least at Royal Caribbean, the lingo is the ABCs, which is a very popular itinerary, which would include Aruba, Barbados, and Curacao. So speaking of Barbados, I mean, beautiful beaches, like very pristine, very clean, very
Commercial, right? Not as commercialized down there in the southern
Yes,
beaches, right?
exactly. Not a lot of you know, development, I guess I was looking
Right.
for. So, you know, even just to not only sit on the beach, but to have just to jump off a cliff, you know, that's your sense of adventure. Like, why not? So fun and just gorgeous beaches. I guess I can say personally, I'm a little biased to the Southern Caribbean. I just think I'm captured by the color of the water, and I find it down there is just like Chrissy was saying, you know, what appeals to her are the beaches. I think it's the same thing for me. My husband would be like, no, he loves the history aspect of it. But for me, it's these beaches, and I love the Southern Caribbean. I mean, just look at that view and the sun setting. It's absolutely incredible. Oh, and this is in St. Lucia.
It's not your average beach, that's for sure. I think that's the thing that makes a trip to the Caribbean so different. Whether you live, on the Atlantic coast or the Pacific coast, our kind of hometown beaches are different. Even the way we kind of interact with them, right? Oh, we can drive to the beach maybe where we live, but when you go to some place like this, it really has not just a whole tropical thing going on, but it even though it's not so far from where we are, right? I mean, it's almost our backyard, and yet you feel like you're a million miles away because it's just so different. The people are, and the culture is different, but it's also just these little slices of paradise. They're very different than our own home beaches.
And the weather is almost always great.
Yeah,
So you're like guaranteed a great beach day. Sure, it might rain for 20 minutes and then it's, sunny again.
I don't mind the rain when I'm still sitting underneath the palm tree. That is okay by me.
It's a good time to reapply your sunscreen.
Yeah, see, always thinking.
Um, so Bon Air, like I said, I love the beach. My husband likes the history. Some really interesting historical tours, ATVs, off-roading. That was awesome. My husband and I did that, and that was something that I really wanted to do. So I emasculated him just a little bit and told him that I get to drive, and he was he was totally fine with that. He drove the jet ski, so we took turns.
Oh, it's okay.
Yes, but it was cool to see that kind of part of it and how it's still a bit underdeveloped and just the natural feel of the island. So more off-roading ATVs that you can find in Aruba, gorgeous beaches, and just different things on the beach, definitely snorkeling, and different kinds of tours on the island. Puerto Rico, like Christy was saying, she likes just kind of to explore and walk around and see the architecture and stuff. This almost reminds me a little bit of like a Cuba influence, a little bit with the structures and the color, and the marina here. So there's walking tours as well that will tell you about the history, and their kind of culture. The Dominica. This reminded me, I went to Hawaii, and this I'm blanking on it, but what's the crazy? It's on the main island, the crazy road where.
I know.
Okay, sorry.
I can't think of it either now, but yes.
I'm blanking on it.
The road to
But this reminds me of it for sure. Wait, I think Donna knew. I think she.
the road to Hannah, was it?
Thank you.
Yes,
Welcome.
that's it.
The road to Hana, exactly. Funny story about that. My husband drove there and he got like vertigo or something, and there's only like one way really to get back out, and it's to drive the road all the way back. So
Oh,
I
yeah.
had to drive, and when you drive back, you're driving on the outskirts, and there's no shoulder. You're like
There's no
almost,
rails.
oh my gosh, gonna fall. We rented stupidly this monster Jeep because we were told that's the way to do it. So I'm driving this big car. My husband's like hanging out the window with his phone trying to capture pictures, also trying not to be sick. But yeah, so anyway, this I feel like kind of reminds me of that a little bit, just to really be part of the land, seeing these incredible natural waterfalls.
Very like rainforest, right? It's that environment.
Yeah. So very exotic, and I would encourage people who are into nature to look for this excursion if you're hitting up this port.
Yeah. There really is such a variety. I mean, even like Aruba, is more of a desert kind of ecosystem in parts of it, like because of the winds, the trade winds that are there. I mean, there's all these reasons to it, but there's such a variety, even though you don't think that there could be, being that these islands are just like all in one relatively small area. But there really is. I mean, everything from mountains that were created by volcanoes to islands that were made just because they were coral reefs. The differences are huge.
So here in Curacao, gorgeous beaches yet again, historical, which I find, again, brings you back to Cuba a little bit.
Yeah.
So I find that very interesting. And the caves, how awesome is it to just walk through the caves and think back to those who built them, and kind of seeing all the work that went into it. It really is fascinating. St. George's, Granada, I mean, just again, picturesque Caribbean. It is absolutely beautiful. Definitely encourage you to embrace the culture here, maybe go out to eat, have some local food, talk to some local people, and just see, how they operate on this island. Antigua, oh my gosh, the food here too, so good. And everything's so fresh and colorful. And instead of ATVs, I wanted to feature this excursion with buggies. So I think they're also a little bit safer than ATVs, but again, a cool way to explore the terrain here more inland. And then of course, lots of beaches for you to relax. So now I'll talk about more of the Bahamas and Bermuda, which maybe some of you are more inclined to go to for next year because you can drive right to Cape Liberty, Bayonne, and go to all of these destinations. So Grand Bahama Island, definitely an experience as far as snorkeling and dolphin watch and beautiful beaches, great weather, and lots to do for the family, whether you want to just rent a cabana one day, is pretty cool. Key West, Florida, we think like, oh, it's so easy to get to Florida. You probably have all been to Florida. That's cool. But Florida is very different in different parts wherever you go. And Key West is a little hard to get to. It's a long drive you'll probably fly into Miami and then rent a car and go to the Keys. So to pop down there and to see the beautiful Keys is really cool. So I would definitely encourage you to get off the ship when you're in port in Key
Absolutely.
West.
Absolutely.
So Kings Wharf, Bermuda. I always find this a bit understated. The secluded beaches, because of all the rock formations, is, I don't want to say magical, but it's romantic and it's special. And the water is just beautiful. And it's also sometimes a reminder to me that it's interesting that Bermuda is sort of in line with, I think it's North Carolina. So it's really not as far south. So to me, it's cool to see the Atlantic Ocean that vibrant, still so close to the New Jersey shore that isn't anything like this.
You're right, and all these coves do have that kind of secluded little piece. So you could be approaching a beach with lots of people, but before you know it, you've all been divvied up enough so that you kind of only almost have your own slice of beach, which is nice.
Absolutely. And to get to Bermuda is, you can do so, I think, in like a day from New Jersey. So if you're not so inclined to do a 7-night out of Cape Liberty or from Florida or any of our southern home ports, you can go right out of Cape Liberty or even Baltimore and get to Bermuda and do a 5-night itinerary. Actually, while we're on Bermuda for a second, I also want to mention that while Kings Wharf is one of our bigger ports, because of one of our ships in our family of fleet, it's called Empress of the Seas. For those of you who have been with Royal Caribbean or sailed on Royal Caribbean, perhaps you've heard of her because she is one of our original ships. I wouldn't say from 50 years ago, but she's definitely one of the older ones. She's been revitalized and fixed up and had quite a nice facelift. But the reason I'm talking about her is that her size is what we're going to be using her for out of Cape Liberty. And because she's much smaller, we're able to get right into the port of Hamilton, Bermuda, and St. George, Bermuda. So normally cruise ships, because of their size, can only get into King's Wharf. So this is definitely an advantage that you all have being up here, most of you, in the Northeast. You also have the option of having that itinerary, which is pretty nostalgic because cruise ships weren't always what they are now. And the smaller ships would be able to go into Hamilton and St. George, but most of them are no longer able to get there. And it's quite a long ride from King's Wharf to those other destinations. So sorry for my tangent. Continuing into the Bahamas, we also had Nassau. Nassau is one of the ports that we usually dock at when going to the Bahamas because also it's right next to our private island of Perfect Day at Coco Cay. So the quick overnight destination, you'll be in Nassau one day and then our private island in the other day. But you can do things like explore the island for what it's worth and all its land. Families, I highly recommend Atlantis, which is so awesome, like a huge water park, lots of relaxing pools and drinks and cabanas and day beds. So it's really a fun-filled day, that's for sure. But there's also some, more secluded, serene kind of beaches, as you can see here, featured on the left-hand side of Pearl Island. And then our incredible, absolutely incredible private island, Perfect Day at Coco Cay, very close to Nassau, Bahamas. It is located in the Bahamas. And maybe some of you have been there before the island was what it is today. In the past, it was just a great beach day, and now it's obviously so much more. And this is great for families because you have everything from adventurous activities such as a zip line or these water slides with the water park to more of like I wouldn't call it adults only, but it really appeals to adults where it has a beautiful infinity pool that overlooks a private beach area. Incredible cabanas, actually. Let me see here. On this map, you can see all the way up top, there's floating cabanas, so a little taste of Tahiti, but right here, easily in the Caribbean, and lots to do. The whole idea around Perfect Day Coco Cay is that you make your perfect day. There's thrilling activities, and then there's also chill activities. So you kind of make what you want of it, and you can only get here at this destination from Royal Caribbean because it's our private destination. So I gave you like little tastes of what the islands have to offer. I definitely highlighted a lot of the beaches just because I'm a little biased, I think, because I just love the beaches so much. But there's a lot more options than just that. So whether you want more active adventures, you want to expand your palate and really embrace the local culture, culinary delights is listed here. Lots of family activities to bond. And there's also great accessible adventures, which I think is very important to highlight because some people think that if there's a limitation, either yourself or somebody within your party, you can't do everything that, and you have to stay on the ship. And that is just not the case. There are so many options. We're very inclusive at Royal Caribbean, not only on our ships, but who we partner with when we're talking about excursions. And just embracing the culture. You know, we talked about the Mayans and the ruins and a spiritual experience. So different destinations have different things where if you want to learn more about that culture, we definitely give you that option. So I wanted to show you here the home ports where you can leave out of to go into the Caribbean. So most importantly, I want to talk about Cape Liberty real fast right here. And I believe most of you are probably local in New Jersey. So right in our backyard, easy drive, and you can get down to the Caribbean all year long from Cape Liberty. Whether you want to go in February, August, or November, you have options. Boston occasionally goes up there. It's a seasonal time, but Baltimore, you can also go year round down to the Caribbean, and year round out of all the ports in Florida, Port Canaveral, which is Orlando, for those of you who don't know. And if you're even interested in doing a pre or post, we also have a partnership with Universal Studios. So that's a really cool combination that people tend to go with. You can leave out of Tampa, Fort Lauderdale, Miami, San Juan, or also Galveston, Texas. So just a reminder, you could do, a pre or post experience in any of these ports. And of course, you have the discussion with Christy and she would help guide you on what your desires are. And she'd find all the perfect, whether it's hotels or excursions or adventures that you want to explore the city before hopping on to one of our incredible cruise ships.
I think the nice thing about, I always recommend people go, if you're going to fly to a destination, whether it's Florida or Galveston or whatever, if you're going to fly there, go a whole day before your cruise, not just because you want to just avoid the, random possibility of a flight delay that would screw up your departure.
No
but,
stress. It's
yeah,
vacation.
it's
no
vacation.
Stress.
No stress, right? But all of these cities, they're not on the itinerary. They're just the exit and entrance to your cruise. And all of them offer a cool nightlife vibe or something to do during the day or their own beaches. So a lot of them have things to do in their own right. And it's an afternoon, either the day before you cruise, you get there in the afternoon, you drop off, you check into your hotel, and then you enjoy the city in the afternoon and for the evening. And like you said, the Port Canaveral option does give you a chance to visit Orlando. It's about an hour or so away. So if you are interested in knitting together perhaps a smaller cruise with a land component because you want to go to Universal or any of the other theme parks that are in the Orlando area, it's an easy way to kind of have that kind of combo land and sea, vacation. I've done that myself, where it's, let's do a little bit of both. I'm going all the way to Florida, might as well. It is a relatively easy thing to do, and certainly something that I am happy to knit together for my clients. And like I said, with such a variety of things to enjoy in all of these places, whether it's a home port or all the ports that your cruise might take you to in the Caribbean, it's a vacation. Sample all of what you have in front of you. So make the most out of each stop.
That's a really great point. So I will end the presentation with a couple of ships that I want to show you in the Caribbean. And by a couple, I mean a lot of ships in the Caribbean. So for those of you who are not familiar with Royal Caribbean, I'll school you real fast. But Royal Caribbean has different classes of ships. So when I speak of a different class, you'll see it highlighted up top. So there's, Empress of the Seas and Majesty of the Seas aren't really classes because they're part of our older fleet, but there's Vision class, Voyager class, Radiance class, Freedom class, Quantum class, and Oasis class. And then there's ships within that class. So when we talk about different classes, we'll just talk about Oasis class for just a moment. And within Oasis class, there's 4 ships. So all of those ships are pretty much the same size. They all have very similar features. The ship is laid out very similarly. And that affords us different size ships and different activities that can go, maybe there's 2 Oasis class ships in the Caribbean and or in Florida, and there's one in Cape Liberty, New Jersey, and there's one in Europe. So we're able to give clients that experience, all over the world. Quantum class is very in tune with the cooler season. So we have 2 quantum class ships in Alaska. We have one in Cape Liberty during the winter months, one in China, one in Europe. So anyway, the ships listed here are all the ones that are in the Caribbean. And I want to highlight behind me is Oasis of the Seas, which is so exciting to have up here in Cape Liberty, New Jersey. She was supposed to be here for this summer of 2020, but she will be returning for summer 2021, doing the itinerary out of Cape Liberty into the Bahamas. So it's a 7-night going to Port Canaveral, Nassau, and Perfect Day at Coco Cay. But what's really special is that we've never had this class of ship up here in the Northeast. And not to get too technical with y'all, but I will say that when preparing for the ship to come up here, in order to get under the Verrazano Bridge, they had to adjust the buoyancy of how she sits in the water to get under there. And this class of ship before COVID would accommodate up to 6,000 guests. And you might be like, oh my gosh, there's so many people. Like, no way. You don't understand how the ship is spaced out to really accommodate that many people. Where
it's surprising how much space there is to do that, to accommodate all those people. I mean, I think the quantum class and the Oasis class, personally, they feel like a destination in and of themselves to me. There's so much on them to really occupy your time all day long. But the truth is that you can be on one of those ships all day long, like at sea day, and not feel like you're among thousands of people at all. I mean, or even hundreds of people. Like, unless you're minding the elevators, you don't see everybody. They're just so big, and there's so many wonderful spaces for you to sit by a pool or sit in a quiet area or go and do one of the many, many things that are on board. Even the smaller ships, there's so much space to accommodate the amount of guests on board that you can, even though they say, they're like floating cities, they are like floating cities, but there's so much around. You don't feel like you're sitting there with, 1,000 of your closest new friends. There's not that
it's
vibe
absolutely
to any
incredible.
of the ships.
It really is. I mean, you can go see a water show at our Aqua Theater. You can go down a 10-story dry slide. You can play laser tag. You you can go to the escape room. You can sing karaoke. You can sit on one of your gorgeous balconies and just watch us sail away. I mean, there is lots and lots to do. So we have all different classes of ship in the Caribbean, and doing as short as a 3-night sailing. We have that out of Florida, going quickly to Nassau and Perfect Day at Coco Cay, and then returning to either Miami or Orlando. And those itineraries, the 3 and 4-night, we call them short Caribbean, are on Mariner of the Seas and Navigator of the Seas, which are a little bit smaller, but lots of activities to do on there. Even on Mariner of the Seas, we have a sky pad, and that is like a trampoline park where you are hooked up to these bungee cords, and you can hop around to different trampolines. And if you really want to enhance your experience, you can put on virtual reality goggles and pretend I think there's going to be 4 different options, one of which is walking on the moon. So If you don't have a problem with vertigo, I think that would be a lot of fun. But lots and lots of different options in the Caribbean, as you can see here. But yeah, I wanted to highlight Oasis of the Seas coming up to here, so a quick drive market. And actually, Oasis of the Seas was just amplified. So not only did she go into dry dock to get her traditional maintenance that needs to be looked at, but we've added all these fun activities to her. So definitely something worthwhile to look at. And then Harmony of the Seas and Allure of the Seas and Symphony of the Seas are down in Florida for you to go on, I think, either 7 to 10 nights down in the Caribbean. So whatever time you have, make the most of it. And I think that a lot of us are just tired of being pent up. And guys, it's going to be a tough winter, right? Because not only are we kind of pent up, but at least we had the outdoors to embrace a little bit for a little bit of an escape. And I don't really know how much of the winter we're going to be able to do all that. So to put something on the books for next year, to give yourselves something to look forward to is really important, right? It's like the light at the end of the tunnel. And while we currently don't have any ships on the water, that will be changing before the end of the year.
Yeah.
We, Royal Caribbean, who partnered with Norwegian Cruise Lines, submitted a healthy return to sailing, very comprehensive plan to the CDC about 4 or 5 weeks ago, and they have been reviewing it. It was a panel of medical experts that Royal and NCL enlisted to put together this comprehensive plan. And they thought about everything, right? So way above my pay grade, but they were talking about not only like percentage that it's acceptable to sail again, whatever that magic number is, is it 50%, is it 70%, is it 45%, we don't know, to what the buffets look like, to how staterooms should really be occupied. Is it every other room? But what about adjoining rooms for those families who need 2 rooms? I mean, they have looked at everything to really ensure that the passengers and crew are safe. And that's why Christy and I sort of talked about a little bit, we're not sure how the excursions will really look like going forward. But they did propose within the proposal that there will be a lot of options to go on excursions, but maybe just to get us, back in the water, it's going to be a little bit more limited. And I was like, if that's what makes us get back on the water and help bring our travel industry back to somewhere like it was before, then I'm okay with, only 6 options rather than, 12 like it was before, or whatever it may be. So
I think one of the wonderful things about all the places you showed us tonight, and this was very much intentional, what Marissa and I were doing tonight, was to show you kind of the gamut of things you can do in these wonderful destinations all around the Caribbean and Mexico and Honduras and all these other places, Bermuda, because even though historically speaking, you could do an excursion with all different vendors, the most likely thing that's going to happen as we return to sailing is going to be this expectation that the safest group to be with is the group you're already sailing with. So the excursions are likely going to only be offered through the cruise lines. And this makes a lot of good sense, certainly short term until we know kind of like the long-term progress as we kind of open up all around the world and things like this. So the variety of things you saw tonight in all these different places is true. There might, like Marissa said, be fewer of them in an individual port than before, but there's also going to be more options to accommodate more people. So it's going to be this great blend of things that we've always seen in the past. Perhaps the options will be different than maybe something you did the last time you were in Roatan. So So we do expect there to be some differences, but we still expect a great experience. I mean, none of the cruise lines have any intention of going out on the water again unless they can ensure that you will have a fantastic experience. There will be no half measures. It's going to be a great experience or you're not going. So
That's the
that
Royal
is something
Caribbean standard.
it is, and they are committed to it. And I'm very pleased about that because I wouldn't want to sell anybody a vacation that may or may not live up to your expectations. So that's very critical to me and how I work with my clients. And it's definitely something I encourage you when you're ready to book that next vacation. And I hope that you do. Royal Caribbean has a great cruise with confidence policy, which we haven't really talked about. But the truth is that you're going to be able to book a future cruise with potentially a refundable deposit and also have the ability to change your mind up until relatively the last minute and still be able to retain that credit and use it on a different cruise if you decide at the last minute you maybe don't want to go just yet. So there's lots of flexibility in the marketplace right now, which is really great. So it's something, gives you something to put on the books and look forward to. I believe that's really healthy for all of us right now to have some mental health, some emotional health right now and say, all right, well, I've got a trip planned. That's really valuable. And like I've done in all my previous presentations, I am offering a little booking incentive. So depending on the kind of cruise you're interested in booking, you book a Royal Caribbean cruise by the end of November. I've got different kind of shades of onboard credit on offer. So if it's something you're interested in talking about, whether or not it's a departure from a local port for you, or you want to go to maybe down to San Juan or Florida and depart from there or Galveston, let's talk about it. There's so many choices. And we do know that, right now, the return to sailing date is December 1st as of now, but there really is an expectation that come 2021, we'll be sailing in earnest, and all the choices that you've come to expect and benefit from for your vacation will be online as we move forward into 2021. So I hope you'll consider looking at 2021 for your next travel plans. And like I said, the Caribbean's just around the corner. It's right down the block practically, right? I mean, it's a hop, skip, and a jump from where you live, whether you have to fly to a port or drive to a port. It's not all that far away. You guys can always stay connected with me through my various phone, email, website. You can always catch me on social media. This recording is going to go up on my YouTube channel. So you can refer to all those beautiful pictures later and talk to your significant other about how badly you want to go. We just started our new quarterly contest. I haven't heard who the winner is yet from the other one. They just drew it the other day. So I haven't heard who our last winner is, but now we're giving away a 3-night stay in a luxury villa in Cabo in Mexico. So if you are interested in entering that contest, go up to escapeartistholidays.com and check out the link for that. I want to thank Marissa so much from Royal Caribbean to just take us on this wonderful tour of the Caribbean. Thank you. What a great trip.
You're more than welcome. Thanks for having me.
Now all I need is a tropical drink, my feet in the sand, and I'm all set.
Cheers to that.
No kidding. Guys, as always, if you have any questions or you want to talk about it, feel free to contact me. I'm here at your service, and I hope you enjoyed our evening tonight. Next week, we're going to Bermuda. I've got the guy from the Bermuda Tourism Board talking about trips specifically to Bermuda. So I hope you'll join us. Thanks again, everybody, for being here. Have a great week. Stay safe. Stay healthy. Good night.
Bye.